You have probably heard this line before. But what if I told you that this eye is not a metaphor? It is real. It is biological. And more importantly, it is sacred. Hidden deep within your brain lies a small, pine cone-shaped gland. The ancients called it the seat of the soul. Mystics called it the gateway to God. Modern science calls it the pineal gland. But there is something inside this gland that almost no one talks about. A secretion, a divine fluid, a sacred anointing, hidden in plain sight. And for centuries, powerful institutions have gone to great lengths to suppress it. Because once you remember what this secretion truly does, you become ungovernable. You remember who you are. And that is exactly what they fear. Tucked between the two hemispheres of your brain sits a tiny, mysterious structure no bigger than a grain of rice. It is called the pineal gland. Unlike most parts of the brain, the pineal gland is not paired. It is singular. It is shaped like a pine cone. It is surrounded by cerebrospinous fluid. And it is the only part of your brain that contains water with light-sensitive cells, the same kind found in your eyes. In fact, some scientists have called it a vestigial third eye. But the pineal gland is far from vestigial. It is a living antenna. When activated, it regulates your circadian rhythm, produces melatonin to manage your sleep, and under certain conditions releases substances that can shift your consciousness into higher states. This brings us to the secretion. Biologically, the pineal gland produces melatonin, a hormone that induces rest and repair. But under certain conditions of breath, darkness, and inner stillness, something else begins to happen. Some researchers have found trace elements of dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, within the pineal tissue. DMT is a powerful endogenous psychedelic. It is known as the spirit molecule because of its link to near-death experiences, lucid dreams, and mystical states of unity. In ancient traditions, however, this secretion was not just seen as a chemical. It was sacred. The Hindus called it Amrita, the nectar of immortality. Yogis spoke of bindu, a divine drop from the crown that must be preserved. Early Christians and Hermeticists called it chrism, a holy anointing oil that rose within the body, igniting enlightenment. They believed that when this fluid was activated and brought upward through the spinal channel, it would awaken the Christ within. So we must ask, is this secretion merely hormonal? Or is it the biological interface between body and spirit? Modern medicine reduces it to chemistry. But ancient wisdom tells another story, one where this fluid acts as a bridge between dimensions, a carrier of memory, and a catalyst for divine awakening. In the next section, we will dive into those ancient teachings and uncover how nearly every advanced civilization revered this fluid as the key to transcendence. Long before modern science ever named the pineal gland, ancient civilizations revered it as the seat of divine power. In ancient Egypt, this gland was symbolized by the Eye of Horus, a powerful icon of protection, intuition, and enlightenment. What is fascinating is this. When you overlay the Eye of Horus onto a cross-minus section of the human brain, it matches the location and structure of the pineal gland with eerie precision. The Egyptians believed this inner eye allowed pharaohs to travel between worlds, to access the gods, to communicate with the afterlife. In the Hermetic texts attributed to Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom, there are descriptions of a sacred oil that, once awakened, rises up the spine and activates the crown. They called it the oil of light, the chrism, and it was believed to be generated within the pineal region of the brain. Moving east, we find similar references in the Vedic and yogic traditions of India. They spoke of soma, mysterious nectar produced in deep states of meditation, whose taste brought ecstasy and whose energy unlocked the doorway to the eternal. Some yogis claimed this nectar dripped down from the crown chakra and must be caught by the awakened practitioner, lest it be lost into the fires of base desire. The Shaivite texts describe Bindu as a divine drop at the back of the head, preserved by celibacy and inner stillness, which could be directed upward to spark illumination. In Taoist alchemy, the inner elixir is cultivated in the cinnabar field, an energy center closely linked to the third eye and upper dantian. They, Hansen, too, speak of a heavenly dew, a subtle fluid of refinement that grants longevity and spiritual clarity. But perhaps the most mysterious reference comes from early Gnostic Christianity. They taught of a secret anointing not done with oil from without, but by the Spirit from within, a baptism of light that awakens the divine spark already buried deep in man. Some texts even allude to a 33-step ascent within the body, mirroring the 33 vertebrae of the spine, through which this divine fluid must rise to crown the seeker with gnosis. All these traditions, scattered across cultures and centuries, seem to point toward the same hidden truth, that there exists a sacred secretion within us, a fluid that, when cultivated and awakened, connects us to the eternal. This is not coincidence. This is convergence. So if all the ancients knew about this secretion, we must ask, why is it missing from our modern education? Why has it been erased? And more importantly, who benefits from you never remembering it? If this secretion is real, if it truly has the power to unlock higher states of consciousness, then why is it not taught in schools? Why is it not discussed in medicine? Why do religious institutions remain silent? The answer is uncomfortable, but necessary. Because the moment you awaken this inner fluid, you become sovereign. You stop looking outward for salvation. You begin seeing through illusion. You break the chains of manipulation. Mental, emotional, even spiritual. And that is terrifying to those who seek control. Throughout history, power structures have always feared the awakened individual. Empires can rule over bodies, but they cannot rule over minds that remember their divinity. The pineal secretion, when activated, shifts your perception. You begin to feel energy. You begin to see patterns. You begin to trust your inner knowing more than the noise outside. This is not just spiritual awakening. It is deprogramming. In modern times, anything that leads to genuine inner power has been ridiculed, pathologized, or criminalized. Natural medicines, illegal. Psychedelics, demonized. Mystical experience, called psychosis. Even meditation was once labeled dangerous. But why? Because these practices bypass the system. They reconnect you with the divine without any middleman. And this secretion, this sacred oil within the pineal gland, is the ultimate bypass. You do not need a priest. You do not need a guru. You only need presence, purity, and remembrance. Imagine a population that can dream lucidly, that can heal through breath, that can see through deception, that walks in peace but cannot be manipulated by fear. Now imagine trying to govern such people. You begin to understand why fluoride was added to the water, why pineal gland studies are suppressed, why entire generations have been taught to ignore their inner world. Because when you remember who you are, You can no longer be controlled. And that is the real reason they hid this secretion. But how exactly did they do it? How do you silence something that is already inside every human being? In the next section, we reveal the tools, chemicals, and cultural conditioning used to suppress your sacred biology and how it all leads back to the gland they hope you never awaken. If the pineal secretion is truly so powerful, then how did they silence it? The answer lies in a slow, systematic attack, not just on your body, but on your perception of reality. Let us begin with the biological assault. For decades, one chemical has quietly worked its way into your water, toothpaste, and food chain: fluoride. It was introduced under the guise of dental health. But multiple studies have shown that fluoride accumulates in the pineal gland more than in any other organ. It leads to calcification, turning this light-sensitive gland into a hardened crystal unable to receive or emit its full signal. As the gland calcifies, your dreams become dull. Your intuition fades. The inner light begins to dim. Next comes the digital assault. Blue light from screens, phones, TVs, laptops disrupts your melatonin production. Melatonin is not just for sleep. It is part of the pineal secretion rhythm. When disrupted, your connection to natural cycles breaks down. You forget how to rest, how to listen, how to be. Now add processed food, synthetic hormones, and electromagnetic pollution, each one chipping away at your inner clarity. But the attack is not just chemical. It is psychological. You weren't ought to dismiss anything spiritual as unscientific. You were told that intuition is irrational, that dreams are meaningless, that mystical experience is mental illness. From a young age, your focus was pulled outward toward consumption, achievement, and conformity. You were trained to worship logic and ridicule mystery, to fear silence and seek distraction. And slowly, over years, that sacred secretion within you was forgotten. Even in religion, the pineal gland was erased. The early mystics who spoke of the light within were exiled. Gospels that referenced inner anointing were removed. Rituals became external. Spirit became dogma. What was once a direct experience of the divine became a business of intermediaries. But here is the truth they cannot erase. The gland is still there. The fluid is still there. The code is still active, waiting for you to remember. And in the next part, we uncover the ancient map, the 33-days cycle of the sacred secretion, and how it was once revered as the stairway to heaven. In the esoteric traditions of early Christianity, Hermetic Egypt, and Vedic India, there exists a teaching so profound, and yet so forgotten, that it was nearly erased from history. It speaks of a sacred journey, one that begins in the base of your spine and ends in the crown of your head. It is called the Chrism cycle. According to this teaching, every 33 days, a tiny droplet of sacred fluid is produced in the human body. It is born near the sacrum, the sacred bone at the base of the spine. And this fluid, if preserved and guided upward, becomes a golden elixir that activates the pineal gland and floods the brain with divine light. The early mystics saw this as the anointing from within, a literal baptism of light, not through water poured by another, but through sacred chemistry rising from within. They taught that this fluid rises upward through the spinal column, which, not coincidentally, has 33 vertebrae, one for each step in this holy ascent. At the 33rd level, the upper cervical spine, the fluid meets the base of the skull, just below the pineal gland. If the individual is in a state of alignment physically, emotionally, sexually, and spiritually, this fluid is then magnetized upward into the pineal center. And when it touches the gland, the inner light ignites. The Bible, strangely enough, may have encoded this teaching. It says that Jesus was crucified at the age of 33, on a place called Golgotha, the place of the skull. Is this allegory, or a hidden reference to the ascension of sacred energy, to the final anointing at the crown? In Kundalini Yoga, this process mirrors the rise of Shakti, the serpent energy through the 7 chakras, culminating at the 3rd eye and crown. In Taoist inner alchemy, it is the refinement of Jing into Shen rising like vapor into the upper cauldron. All these paths point to one truth. The body is not just biological. It is a sacred temple, a living system designed for spiritual ascension. But here is the key. This chrism can only rise when you preserve it, which means you must honor your energy, avoid its waste, and build the inner fire through breath, intention, and stillness. In the next section, we will explore exactly how to do that, how to activate the secretion consciously, and reclaim the sacred technology hidden in your biology. You now understand the sacredness of the pineal secretion. You know what it is, why it was hidden, and how ancient wisdom revered it. But now comes the most important question. How do you activate it? The first step is purification. First, decalcify the pineal gland. Start by removing what blocks the flow. This means eliminating fluoride found in many toothpastes and tap water. Switch to fluoride-free products. Use a water filter. Avoid heavy metals like aluminum, which also accumulate in brain tissue. Then, nourish the gland. Eat foods rich in iodine, boron, and chlorophyll. Raw cacao, goji berries, sea moss, spirulina, these are all known pineal supporters. Drink spring water. Spend time in natural sunlight, especially morning light, to restore your circadian rhythm. This begins to unlock the biological gateway. But biology is only one layer. Now we move to breath. Second, use breath and vibration to activate the gland. Certain breathing patterns like Kum-Aka breath retention and Bhr Amari humming breath have been shown to stimulate the pineal gland through vibration and pressure. When you hold the breath after inhalation, you create inner stillness. Pressure builds in the cerebrospinous fluid. This fluid begins to pulse, gently massaging the pineal gland. Add vibration like chanting Om or humming at 936 Hz, and you stimulate the gland's piezoelectric properties. It begins to glow. Some even report visual flashes of violet light, fractals, or inner visions. Third, practice darkness and stillness. The pineal gland is deeply connected to light and dark cycles. When exposed to total darkness, it begins to secrete more melatonin and, according to some, trace amounts of DMT. Ancient initiates would meditate for days in pitch-black caves. Today, even a few hours in darkness meditation can bring vivid dreams, clarity, and deep peace. Turn off the lights. Turn off the noise. Let the inner light awaken. Fourth, preserve your life force. Sacred traditions have always warned against the reckless loss of energy, especially sexual energy. When you retain and transmute that force, you give the body the raw material to produce higher forms of energy, including the sacred secretion. This is not repression. It is refinement. When your body is pure, your breath is deep, your mind is still, and your heart is open, the chrism rises, the inner oil flows, and the pineal gland awakens. In the final section, we will remind you of the truth that has always lived within you, a truth so powerful that no system could ever fully erase it. This sacred secretion, it is not a fantasy. It is not a myth. It is the forgotten intelligence of your body, the lost light of your soul. You were born with it, and you were never meant to forget it. But through distraction, distortion, and deception, they buried it beneath layers of noise. And now, you are here, remembering. The pineal gland is not just a gland. It is a temple, a compass, a portal. And the oil that rises within you is not just fluid. It is the anointing of your return, the return to source, to clarity, to truth. If this message awakens something within you, trust it, follow it, breathe into it, tap like, leave a comment, even just a word to affirm your remembrance, and subscribe to join this journey of hidden wisdom and sacred power. Because this is only the beginning. The ancient light is rising again, and your inner anointing awaits.